Thank you for calling me Divya now. Anyway, so today's session is about design and entrepreneurship. So, for those of you who are not familiar with what entrepreneurship is, it's just business. It's nothing out of the ordinary. It's something we all know, something we all have interacted with, and something we all actually can do ourselves. And you might be wondering why exactly design is important when it comes to business. The answer is quite simple. It's just because we're kind of serving a customer base. We have a market, we have specific customers that we look at. So every business has links which are very, very deeply connected with design. The roots are totally connected with design, and it's not too far away from it, in fact. So why do we need design for business? That's exactly what I've answered now. You have a process that you go through in every business. And when I'm talking about business, for all those of you who are an MPC, who are thinking, this is not for me, I don't care about business, I'm just going to be a tech person. Don't worry, this is actually very close to what you're going to be doing, because no matter where you go and work, you're going to be serving a customer who is a person. And in the end, whatever you do is going to be serving a business. Except for if you're into the pure sciences, because then you don't really have too much to do with normal consumers. Anyway, why am I so bothered about business? Why am I bringing up startups in design when design isn't purely related to startups? Well, this here on the screen is the reason why. Over 1,300 startups were added to India during 2019, which is a huge number. And why is it a huge number? It's because India is such a developing country. All of us have this, young passion, which kind of forces us into adding on to what already exists. And as you all might have heard, or I don't know if you all didn't hear it, I will let you know. It's that India has one of the most youngest populations of the world, which means we have more people requiring to fill in jobs, which means we have more opportunities for growth and more opportunities for interesting startups. Why I picked this topic is because of how much impact a single startup can create on an economy. And people, even if you do want to leave India further in the future, that does not really affect how much you could add on to the startups in India, because in the end, where you choose to work will actually directly impact what you're doing. So even if you do plan on studying abroad, that's no big deal. You can always come back and open startups if you want. Samhit, to answer your question, why it doesn't affect is because you don't really, if you were to go out and study, you don't really have a citizenship of that country. And since you do not, if you ever have a crazy idea that you want to implement on your own, or if you want to make a company of your own, you actually have to come back to your country to make an entire company, because a lot of laws don't allow you to do so in other countries. You have a limited, limited number of things that you can do. Even though most of the startups in India are the same, or at least have some similar characteristics as people, outside the USA do, or inside the USA do, it does not mean that we do not have scope for new businesses, because that's something we constantly need. No matter where you are, you need new businesses to keep technology alive. If you do not have new businesses, there's really no point in innovation or, even invention. So startups is a go-go. Even Narendra Modi and our newest government really, really appreciate startups. And they kind of, want to push the young people to create something for themselves rather than relying on what already exists. Oh, oops. Business model canvas. So today what I'm trying to introduce to you all is something very, very, rigid. It's not something that we would normally expose young children to, take part in, but I'm taking this step because I want you to see how things actually go when you try to dive into, opening startups and such things. Now, there's one thing that I want you to know. It's to answer one of our Varsha's question. She asked, when is the best age to start up a business? To be honest, there is no answer to that. Facebook, Mr. Zuckerberg started Facebook when he was 21. Honestly, people will tell you that, oh, he just got lucky. Not everybody really, gets to do that. But to be fair, if your idea is good, you will get through it. If you have a good team backing you up, if you have good people backing you up, if you have the finances to cover, then it's going to be a success. Doesn't mean you give in to any idea you have. We will discuss this soon. So I will just, a few people asking me what exactly is a startup. A startup is basically a new business that a bunch of people get together and begin. It's a new idea. It's more of innovation because it kind of pulls in something that has never been thought of before, or even if it has been thought of, it has never been executed before. So what we're doing is we're trying to make something new out of things that already exist. That basically is a startup. It's like any other business. Or you can do whatever already exists, but in a better way. That also is a startup. Doesn't matter. Please don't call me ma'am. Divya's fine. And we can manufacture products that we create as a product designer. A lot of products are manufactured by groups of designers. YouTubing is not a business. It's more of an activity that you perform because you don't really have anything at risk there. YouTubing, Karthik Sai is not purely a business, but it's definitely a job. I don't know why people don't consider that. Anyway, I will answer your questions. As I keep going, I'm getting too distracted by them. I'm sorry. So a business model canvas is basically an outline to what you can make a startup into. So let me give you a brief idea. Every team or every person or every person around in your team probably will be given this layout, and you kind of make a couple of them and try to answer these questions so that you can have an idea of where you're headed to. This is a small canvas. So what are the facets of branding? Why are we trying to create a brand, and what even is a brand? So a brand is basically something you create out of a business. You can have an unbranded business, but that does not mean that you don't really create your mark. When you try to create a trademark, when you try to give in to the society something that you can call your own, that is simply put branding. You don't really need anything too complex to explain that. And that should answer your questions about branding. So when we talk about branding, what we mainly talk about is its position in the market. How good is your brand? How much investment does it take? How costly is it? What kind of customers does it serve? Brand personality, what kind of a personality are you trying to give off? Is it a happy brand? Like, Teletubbies, although that's not a brand. Or is it something that kind of, a fashion brand, which is kind of mellow and gothic? Your brand itself becomes a personality when you invest enough time and resources. And that's important to us because of our target market. Because when I create a personality, what I'm doing is serving a particular population. And that is, in fact, my target market. So I have a market that I'm looking at. I make something for them, and I expose it to them. And I try to tell them that, oh, this is what I have. You like it, you buy it. You don't like it, please move on. That's basically what business is, right? In the city of Bangalore, every person has a startup. That's pretty good. I mean, you can make your own startup, not too far away from it. Now, this is basically what is called a business model canvas. And this has certain things that we're going to do right now. So what I would recommend all of you to do is take a piece of paper, take a pen, and write down things that I'm going to be saying in an order. Now, you don't have to copy down this table. You don't have to do anything with this. You can just type in business model canvas on Google and you'll find a ton of variations of this. You don't have to have this, but I will just, go over a process, and then you can kind of write it down to see where you stand or what you can be doing. What I want you to first do is think of 3 problems that you can address. Any 3 problems that exist. To me, wildlife is a big thing. So one problem that I can think of is deforestation. Now that's too broad, okay? You can go in and say, oh, tigers are dying. That's my problem. I do not like that tigers are dying out. And I love my country. India is amazing. It has a lot of tigers. And I want to save these tigers. So that is my idea. That is a problem that I have. Or that is, in fact, something that I want to work on. Doesn't even be a problem. You could think of something like, I have this pencil that doesn't really work too well. I don't want to use this. I want something else that can do a better job at doing what I want to. So I'll give you 5 minutes and I'll let you think of 3 problems that you might have. Think of any 3. They could range anywhere. They could be as broad as you like. You don't have to think of any particular problems. Now, I know that y'all are not designers. I don't expect y'all to do tremendously well at this. You don't have to be exceptionally good at this. You just need to kind of get an idea of what's happening. So just think of 3 problems that you want to address or 3 problems that you'd like to have a solution for and write them down. I'm going to give you only 2 minutes, I guess. Just to make this clear, I see that people think that brands are just what you're wearing, but that's not true. Tata, for example, is a brand. You don't necessarily need to be wearing clothes that belong to Tata. Tata is just a brand. They have a mark that they created for themselves. Branding could also mean Snickers. If you're hungry, grab a Snickers. That's a brand that's created in your mind. How many of you, tease your friends, oh, aajkal to fog ka zamana hai. That is also branding. You kind of creating an image in the world of yourself. That's branding. You can manufacture products. In fact, a lot of products do get out in the market that are purely designed by product designers. Yes, if you have projects creating on, even if you have something you've already worked on, you can put it in here and try to see, how it matches with this idea. You don't have to kind of pick something that's too specific. Now, I am expecting you all to write this down. I am hoping that all of you have a pen and a paper and you're scribbling through these. Write down 3 ideas. If you have more, go ahead, please. Think of whatever you want. Fashion designing is not a problem. It's a thing that happens. You can also say that I want to create my own fashion brand. That could be something you want to do. Again, whatever you want to do, needn't be a problem per se. Yes, poor people are not getting any job to earn money. That is also a problem. That is a good problem. You don't have to share your problems with me directly. Please just write them down on a paper. Okay, time's up. I will now start describing what this business model canvas is. So the thing with this is that we begin at the rightmost corner. We talk about our customers. Think of your problem and write down the customers that you think you're gonna be serving. For example, if I'm gonna take a problem and I'm gonna do this with you so that you can just understand what I'm doing. So as I said, my problem was, there are too less tigers in India, and I want to save the population of tigers. I don't like them dying out. That's my problem. And then my customer then would become tigers. Well, but the problem here is tigers are not going to buy my product or my service if I create it. So my customer becomes the government. It becomes forest guards. It becomes enthusiasts. It becomes people who are interested in conservation. It becomes maybe a particular organization, an NGO. It could be things like that. So if you're making something for babies, babies are not your customers. Customers are people who are going to buy things from you. So you're kind of segmenting this into pieces. So I expect you to write this down. I'm expecting you to kind of write your problems and then get into customers and write the customers that you think you have. Yes, we are setting up a business without any knowledge right now. You don't have to really set this up. We're just imagining things, so it's fine. This table is not essential for business, but it gives you a good idea about what businesses can look like. So it's good to have an idea about what goes on in the market. Anyway, so let's move on to value proposition, which is in the middle of this page. We're not really going in a particular order, but I will tell you why it's important to do it in this particular order. So what value proposition means is basically you try to lay out the values that you want your product or service to have. We don't even care right now what your product or service is. We just care about setting up a business. So for my example, my values are that it's nature friendly, it's sustainable, it kind of is warm, it's accountable, it's accountable for what it's doing. It's not something that is for profit. It's not for profit. It's to save the environment, or rather tigers. So that's something you got to put in mind, keep in mind. Personal safety is a very good problem. I've worked on it before. Yes, coronavirus is a problem. You could use that. Now I'm going to move to something that's related to what we just did. So I spoke of value proposition, right? So I'm going to tell you a few things that fall under these values that I want you to keep in mind. So these are a few values. These are a few examples that I have on screen. These are a few that you could consider. If you don't have anything to write down, you could write one of these or two of these. There are a lot of things. So here is where you start making your personality. What is it that you want to look like to the public? What is it that you really want to be? Please don't write down 10 or 20 of these values. You just need a couple for now. You don't really need to get into it completely. So there is something that we call the value proposition canvas, which is basically just about the consumer and the value proposition, the first two steps. This looks something like this. You have what the consumer is going through. The bad things, the good things, what they have to do every day to even get somewhere. So for example, tigers, their only job is eating, roaming, being amazing, being majestic. That's not something I would write down. But for our customer, again, I'm going to go back to the previous one so you don't have to worry. You can write down any of these that you want, and then I'll go ahead in a second, I guess. We're already running out of time. Okay, I'm going ahead. So you don't have to, do anything out of this value proposition canvas. You just need to look at this for now. I'm not expecting you to make anything out of this, but these are certain things that make it very, very easy for us to know what we want out of a particular service. Now, we're going to mark our place. As I said earlier, you are creating a personality. You are creating a space in the market. So you need to know why exactly are you doing this. Are you doing it for money? Are you doing it out of, just goodwill? Are you doing it because you want to feed the population? What is your aim? Why are you doing this? And why is it important to have a team? Now, you cannot, okay, I guess I'll speak slower. Thank you. So you cannot really expect to have a business without a team. And that's because a business has a lot of things. Uh, a business has a design team, it has an engineering team. If needed, it has a marketing team, it has, advertising team. It has all these components that one person simply cannot do alone. So if at all you ever want to create a business, it is important to have a team. So again, now that you're doing this stuff alone, I'm not expecting you to create a startup tomorrow. I am just making you, a little aware of what's happening in the market. So what do I mean by consistency? Consistency basically means how homogeneous a brand is. As in, do you have a single? So let's say I have a fashion brand. Do I have a single aim that I serve? Are all my clothes just going to be party wear, or are all my clothes just going to be for trekking, or am I going to have shoes that just work for hiking? So that's how consistent you can be. Are you changing abruptly? Does your business really serve a lot of things, or does it focus and serve one particular thing that you want to do? I'm going to answer page related questions in a bit. And your main aim is basically, minimizing how many pains your customer goes through. So by now, I am expecting you to have finished the first two steps. So your aim is basically to kind of reduce how a customer is dealing with the problems or the situation that they have. Now, let's get back to this amazing canvas. And now, from customer segmentation, we're going to jump to value proposition. And once we've done that, we're going to revenue streams. So this is basically, are you doing it for profit? Are you doing it not for profit? Are you going to serve the customer? Are you going to serve to another business? For example, if I have a product that I'm making that is actually a machine that kind of basically, cracks eggs, let's say. So who am I serving? Am I going to be supplying an egg cracking machine to every household? Probably not. Am I going to be supplying this to an industry that makes pancakes? Probably. If you're making pancakes, you're going to have to break a lot of eggs, and why have a person do that for you? So now I'm serving another business. I'm not serving a direct consumer. So you basically have to decide who you're serving and how is your revenue going to be generated. How are you going to basically earn out of this? Okay. I'm giving you 2 minutes to write that down. You should have finished the first 3 steps. Actually, I'm going to give you only 1 minute. I'm sorry, I keep changing my time, but it just depends on the amount of time we have left. Okay, now we move on to channels. What exactly are channels? We're talking about the raw material. What is going to be used in what I'm doing? So again, I'm not expecting you to have a completed product by now or a completed idea or service that you're going to be providing. We're just trying to see how businesses go ahead. So what you're going to be doing in channels is you are going to avoid thinking about this for now. It basically has a lot to do with your product, so we're going to skip that step momentarily. But basically what it is how are you going to get the supplies that you need? How are you going to have everything that you basically have to do. Let's move on to the more interesting part, which is customer relationships. Mm, Here is where you're going to be deciding, or maybe trying to imagine, what kind of a relationship you're going to have with your customer. Is it going to be a warm, how are you going to serve it? Like HP, I can just call HP and be like, my laptop isn't working and you got to do something about this. So that is a relationship that I have with the company. I can, knock at the door whenever I want and get my service out of them. So that is something that can be considered as a customer relationship. So I urge you to scribble down what you think you're going to have, what kind of a relationship you're going to be having with the customer. Channel is not a YouTube channel, Karthik Sai. I will answer personal questions and questions about page later. Is the customer care in relationship with business? Yeah, customer care is a sort of relationship that you have with your business, because some companies don't need, customer care. They just can sell you stuff and not care about it. An example for this would be something like a small little pen pencil. So if I'm going to go and buy maybe an eraser, I'm not going to, if I have some defect in, let's say, the making of the eraser, I'm not going to go and cry to the company itself. Although you can have that, they don't have a 24-hour service to, help you with eraser defects. So that's something that, you should consider. Channels, Meghna Reddy, are just, to give you an exact meaning of the word, channels are just kind of modes of transportation, literally. They're somewhat, industry related. You don't have to worry about that right now. I don't know what you mean, Sarvani. That does not look like English to me. Okay, that's fine. YouTube vlogging is not exactly a business, because you're not investing or risking too much. If you have a camera, you can vlog, so it's not exactly a business. But if you are saying that, you keep investing, I invest a lot in my YouTube channel, it might be a business, you can feel free to consider what you like. Now, after that, we are going to be moving on to, let's see, key activities. So key activities and key resources is something you would do after you've decided, what you are going to be serving. What key activities means is that, what are you really performing? What is the job of the company? Is it just building machines and selling them? Is it kind of providing a service that is constant? Like maybe I have this company that, gives massages, I guess. So do you have like people employed to do the job all the time? So what kind of activities is your company performing? If you have an idea that a solution, then you can go ahead and do that. I'm gonna, not kind of force it onto all of you. Key resources are, what kind of resources are you going to be using? Are you just going to be using raw material? Are you going to be having a set of, things that you can buy? Are you going to be having just a laptop? Would a laptop be enough to just, get to your business or get to your startup? Next is key partners. Actually, key partners would come last. First, we look at cost structure. Cost structure is basically, again, it comes after you have decided what you're doing. You need to have an idea of what kind of expenses are going into even starting your business. Okay, so that's something every startup should have. That's an idea, at least a rough idea that you should have. So let's say my product and my teammates product, we have two products that are going through this process, and I say my product takes $2 million, or let's say 2 lakh rupees to make. That's no comparison, but still 2 lakh rupees to make, and my partner says that, oh, mine takes just 1 lakh. So whose product are you going to choose? That's why we need an idea to go through this process. And is mine going to sell for more? Is hers going to sell for more? What kind of profits do we have? Who's being more profitable? So these are kind of things that we consider a lot while going through a business. So again, we kind of are going to leave that for now. Key partners, we're going to leave that for now. What kind of companies are you going to partner with? Do you need partners at all? And stuff like that. We don't really have to think about it right now. So again, we start off with some little idea like we just did. Oh, I have a problem. This is something I want to work with. This is my problem. Then I say, oh, I have this idea. I want to build on it. I want to make a business probably. Then you say, oh, these are the steps that I need to take to make this idea come true. Maybe this could be better. Maybe this idea is not the best. Then you go back and you say, oh, maybe I'm going to try this today. Maybe I'm going to try that today. And you have an entire team doing this all the time. It's not something that you do alone. And then you actually have the final product that goes into the market and has effect on the population. Again, going back to this model, this is just one model that I gave you that actually is, this particular, the third stage. So if you're thinking where design is, it's right here in the second stage. You have a problem, you make a design, and then you move on to this. So to all your questions that, ask why design is even important, you need a product to sell before you get into a business or a startup. That is basically what design does. You have an idea, you try to implement it, but before that, you need an entire team of designers to even let that look true or seem true. That's where designers play a really important role in the proposition canvas. It's actually the background workers. So for all of your questions asking what kind of startups does India need? What should I do? I want to be a startup person. I want to be an entrepreneur or whatever. So this is a little study that basically talks about the startups in India that have come up in 2018. So B2C is basically business to consumer. What it means is products that are developed to directly be sold to a customer. That's it. Fintech is basically fine technology, where you basically deal with just pure technological companies. Health tech is technology related to health. Health. Fintech, I think, except apart from just fine technology, you could also think of it as finance technology. What fine technology means is when you're directly serving the customer, and then again, that's directly correlated to economics and finance. That goes hand in hand. This is a little different from B2C, because even though you are serving, so every startup literally serves someone. It's not, self-serving. But what this classification means is that even though you might have this direct relationship with the consumer, you might have a more, a greater impact on fields like health, technology, education, or such things. Anyway, so these are basically a few fields that startups really work in India. This is a 2018 consensus. It did change in 2019, but B2C still remained first. I did not find it when I was making this presentation, couldn't access it. And 2020, we don't know how it changed yet, but you could possibly be one of the reasons why this graph changes. Anyway, now I'm not literally asking you to make your own business right now, but now that you have an idea of what the business model canvas looks like, you can think of what kind of impact it would generate if it were to seep into the market. One thing that's very important to think of is whether or not your customer will even buy your product. And that depends on designers, because if your designers are good, you're making good products. If your products are good, they're going to buy your product. Simple. Again, the value proposition canvas basically lets you do that. It lets you think of what kind of a place you probably will create in the market, and it lets you think of how you can transform this into something that actually earns some money. Now, this, by the way, is something you will be using very often if you were to be a part of design. And why designers use this is because design is fairly capitalistic. We need money, and that's all we're doing, business for. So when you kind of look into what designers do, it depends a lot on this stuff. So design is hence very closely tied with business. Maker space. So at Page, we actually have a very interesting space known as the D Lab, where I personally have worked a lot, and a lot of my friends have worked a lot. We have this space that just allows us to dive into these things. Not that a place really impacts what you're doing too much. Just having a place where you can have everything together and know what you're doing. Once that kind of a place exists, you kind of feel free to dive into it. Value proposition, I explained earlier. I kind of went in depth earlier. Value proposition is basically what kind of a space you're trying to create for your customers. What kind of a service that you're trying to provide. Who is really, what kind of ideas of yours are really kind of earning money? What kind of pains are you bringing down? Customer pains that I spoke of before. And what kind of products and services, what kind of image you're trying to create in the world. Okay. Customer care is definitely one of the biggest relationships that any business can create. Again, here's an overview. I'm hoping you have completed customer segmentation, value proposition. Channels you can skip. Customer relationships is something you should have written down. Key activities, key resources is something you would have looked at if you have an idea. Otherwise, you can let it be. Even as an architect, Kush Kumar, you do need this. And that's because architect firms really have a lot to do with a service that they're providing. It is also a business. So when you talk about architecture firms, you need to know what kind of customer relationships you have. You need to know who partners with you. You need to know what kind of a service that you're providing is, so that you make a good space for your customer. So implementation, how we present ourselves. When you create a brand or a space that basically allows you to get intimate with what design is all about, and when you implement this, what is very important is how a brand presents itself. That is again where design steps in. We have packaging design, there is web developing, there is a lot of just set design and stuff, which looks a lot at how a brand presents itself. Packaging design, advertisement is also very closely tied with design. So all these things really are needed when it comes to setting up a business. Design basically is to serve your customer. The only purpose why designers and design exist is to serve the customer. And that's exactly what design needs. That's exactly what businesses need. That's exactly what the word needs. Moving on, where does design step in? As I've been explaining again and again, design steps in everywhere, from making a product to, you know, deciding how we're going to get revenue out of it, to even making a space in the market. That's individualism. So from making a product, which is from consumerism, to capitalism, where you're deciding how much revenue it creates, you know, how much it's giving back to us, to making a mark in the market. That's individualism. You kind of need to design different kinds of design, in fact, in every step that you take. Design is important. Wait, sorry. Evaluating your product or services. One thing that I do want you to know is, just because you have an idea, people are not going to buy it. People are not going to buy your idea just because you have an idea. A lot of people have a lot of ideas. If you have any questions, you can keep asking them. I am answering them constantly. Customer relationships, Leela, customer relationships basically step in because of how important design implementation is. The kind of relationship you have with your customer impacts hugely how often your customer will use your product. And that's because if you are not given a good service, are you likely to buy their product again? You probably will say, oh no, that brand is probably my thing, I'm not coming back here. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. That's exactly why design is so getting heated up. It's creating a place for itself. Varsha, I never got your question. I will speak of design in the end again. So let's move on. Should you work on your ideas? So the ideas that you have now and the ideas that you've had all this while, I would not suggest working on them. And that is purely because of how biased we are towards our own ideas. Quality is definitely better than quantity. But when it comes to design, you need a lot of ideas to produce one brilliant idea. In my previous session where I spoke of how important it is to have a lot of ideas, you would have seen how creativity depends on your originality and how original you can be if you have a bunch of ideas. So how do you know that it's the right time to start working on an idea? Discuss your ideas. Nobody really will, steal your ideas. Nobody is really that interested to hijack your ideas and make them their own and begin a startup before you, only to get sued in the court again. No one's going to do that. So trust me, share your ideas with peers, share your ideas with your supervisors, share your ideas with the people who you look up to, so that they give you an idea of what it really means to be successful at something you want to do. Again, any design course will generate a lot of impact in any business that you're running. It does not matter which. And this is just because of the nature of design. Design basically focuses on how we're interacting with our consumer, how we're creating an image to the world. I keep repeating myself. It's because I really want you to know what's going on. And you basically have this space that you create. So again, design is important. Branding is something I've been speaking about. Branding basically helps you create your own spot in the society. It helps you mark your business. It helps you announce yourself to the world, and it helps you create a little space for yourself in the world. And that's important because all these creative social sites that you see, like Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they have their own space that they kind of create in public. You know these well. You know how it feels to be on these sites. You know how it feels to even be a part of these social media sites. Now, I chose this because most of us are part of this. And if you're not, please do not worry. It's not a big deal. You've probably interacted with a lot of brands throughout your life, be it Apple, HP, Dell, be it, your best Levi's, your cloth brands, be it even a toaster brand. There's something you interact with all the time. Typography, another important aspect of design that a lot of people miss out on. Graphic design, namely typography, is also in its own a design. Illustration design and other designs that have a lot to do with how a thing looks. That's very important, because if I didn't write my F this way, you wouldn't recognize Facebook. If I wrote a cursive F, you wouldn't be able to guess that it's Facebook. So even typography is basically how you write things in your brand. It's basically the font, literally nothing else. And it is important because of the impact it creates. Your logos have these beautiful fonts, like Levi's has a particular font. HP has a particular way it writes itself. So all these things, all these little things kind of create a huge impact on how your brand is being viewed. And these are things that you have to invest in. These are things that most designers work in. And again, that's why design is important. So now I will just give you and I answer all the questions about Page. Page basically, helps you get into design. We're not teaching you design as a whole. We're just making you familiar with what design is, how it works, and how you can be a better designer. And why is it that we're doing so? One, to mainly help you get into courses that do design, like NID, like IIT, like other like STEP, like other design institutes across the world. Maybe fashion design, maybe web design, web development. They're just a mode. We encourage you to do things. We encourage you to try out a lot of ways in which you can go about doing businesses and designs. And we obviously encourage you to work on any ideas you might have. So if you have ideas that you want to work on, I would obviously encourage you to discuss this with a lot of people and try to see what they think about it, because any feedback is valuable. Every feedback counts. Can startups change the graph of stock exchange? It can. Because people will start kind of investing into what you're doing, and hence you kind of are tampering with the graph. What would be a startup in the social sector? A startup in the social sector would be anything that looks at like a person was talking about how we can hire people. We need more jobs. So what can you do to serve that? Maybe I just, like Indeed, freelancer. These are social sector jobs, which kind of get people socially towards each other. They make each other socially inept. Creating types of softwares is not a business. Creating types of software is design, but selling those softwares is a business. That was to answer Adwait's question. Karthik Sai, I encourage you to keep YouTubing. It's amazing. So again, since a lot of people asking what I study, I am just 18 years old. I finished my second year in India, and then I moved on to Minnesota. I'm currently a part of the University of Minnesota, where I'm studying industrial design and physics. I have my major in physics, and I also, of course, do industrial design. That's why I'm able to present all of this to you. And I work with a few research groups, and that's about it. That's basically the shortest summary of my resume that I can give you. Making logos